Hello my wonderful, beautiful friends. Guys, welcome back to our /EntitledPeople, where people truly believe it's all about them and who cares about others, right? And in today's episode, we've got people crossing boundaries, guys. They're harassing people at parks, demanding people's homes, and one OP tells a wild story about the time a Karen tried to break into their home for the most ridiculous reason ever. So yeah, sit back, enjoy the stories, and remember guys, this voice should only be on the Dark Fluff YouTube channel. Let's dive in. So this is a story from my college days working at a gas station. I had been working at this place for a couple of years, to the point where I was a shift lead. I would be in charge of closing the store at night and locking up, typically by myself. At the end of these shifts, we would toss everything from bakery, mainly the donuts. My boss was cool though, and he would let us take these home if we wanted, but honestly, you can only eat so many before you're sick of them. So since the procedure was to toss out the donuts an hour before close, I would offer customers a free donut with their purchase, just cause I hate wasting food. Typically, this would only be a dozen or so donuts a night, and I figured this was safe since the store didn't lose money and the customers were happy, likely to come back. Enter Karen. This woman comes in, and I just remember her seeming like she was in a bad mood. When she was making her purchase, I asked if she would like a donut from the tray. There were about 24 or so. She then looks at me suspiciously and she says, "Why? Why are you giving away these donuts?" I let her know I'm just gonna be tossing them anyways, so if you want one, you can have it. She then walks over to the tray and she starts looking them all over with a very suspicious look on her face, and she says, "How many can I take?" Me, never having this question before, say to her, I guess as many as you want, I'm just gonna throw them out. And this is when she says in a very frustrated tone, "And how do you expect me to carry all of these? Do you expect me to shove them in my purse or something?" At this point, I'm shocked by how upset she's gotten over this idea of free donuts. And I say to her, I guess I can give you a bag. She then looks at me like I just insulted her, and she says to me, "A bag? You seriously want me to put them in a bag? Give me those boxes you have there." Now, these were the boxes for customers buying multiple donuts, and while they were cheap, I didn't like the idea of giving away what actually was store property. So I declined and again offer her a bag, which she threw a fit over but ends up taking. The whole time, she's acting as if she was doing me a favor. She then walks out, not even saying thank you. Now, I thought it was over, but when I came in the next day, I got talked to by my store manager. He said that Karen came in during the morning and she asked for new free donuts because the ones she got yesterday weren't the flavors she liked. He asked her for a receipt saying, "What free donuts?" And that's when she said the night manager told her she could have donuts for free, and told her to come back in the morning for more. The manager told her she would need to purchase new donuts if she wanted, which at this point, she flips out, going on how this was awful customer service and she would be calling corporate before leaving. I explained the situation to my manager and he said she was crazy and I need to stop giving away donuts at night. For my remaining time there, no one else got free donuts at all because of Karen. I've said this before guys, give someone an inch and they take a mile, right? And shame on Karen for lying about what OP said. Like it just sucks that one Karen ruined the nice thing that OP was doing for everyone. And this person shares a similar experience. They comment, "I'm a retired interstate bus driver. I was leaving Salt Lake City for Las Vegas at 10 p.m. in February, cold and lightly snowing. That's when a young man hands me his ticket to Parowan, Utah. About halfway, population 2,000. We would arrive there at about 1 a.m., no depot, nothing open. I would go by the restaurant in town and drop off morning newspapers in a drop box. I jokingly asked him if his car had broken down. He said he was broke and he could only afford a ticket to Parowan and he would hitchhike the rest of the way. The bus was less than half full, so I told him if he happened to be sleeping when I got to that stop, I wouldn't wake him up. But if I had passengers getting on in St. George, Utah, and they needed the room, he would have to get off. We got to St. George, and only a few people got on, so I told him just get back on. As we drove to Las Vegas, this jerk goes up and down the aisle, telling riders how cool this bus driver was, letting him ride for free. Of course, everyone runs to the ticket counter in Vegas, and they wanted refunds because the driver let someone ride for free. I end up paying for his ticket out of my pocket, and nobody rode for free after that. So my boyfriend Jake and I have been together for almost 2 years, and we recently decided that he's going to move into my apartment. My apartment that I pay for, that I've lived in alone for 3 years, and Jake is 26 years old. I found out last Thursday when my neighbor texted me saying that there's a woman in the hallway, and she's taking pictures of the building entrance and she's asking other tenants questions about noise levels and what kind of people live here. I came home on my lunch break and my boyfriend's mom was literally standing in my hallway with a notepad. His mom introduced herself very warmly and then said Jake had mentioned the move, and she just wanted to, quote, see where her son would be living and whether or not she approves before things got too far along. She then asked if she could come inside my home to check the layout, to which I said no, and she looked genuinely surprised, like that was an unreasonable response. She then told me that she had some concerns about the neighborhood and she wanted to discuss house rules just in case Jake does move in, including whether I'd be okay with her having a spare key for visits. I told her this wasn't something we're going to discuss at my front door without Jake present, and that showing up unannounced to evaluate my home wasn't something I'm comfortable with. She did leave, but she texted Jake that I was hostile and she thinks we're rushing things. Jake did apologize, and he says she does stuff like this all the time, but he looked genuinely embarrassed. I like him a lot, but the idea that his mom sees my home as a place that she gets veto power over is making me rethink the whole timeline of this move, honestly. Yeah, I was about to say, like, it's already kind of bad right now with mom snooping around before her son moves in. Like, I can't imagine what it'll be like when he moves in. Boundaries are for sure going to get crossed. And this person says, I would tell my boyfriend that he's not allowed to move in until after he's weaned. This has disaster written all over it. And this person says, be aware, she will convince Jake to give her a spare key for emergencies, and she'll drop by unannounced all the time. But yeah, guys, let me know your thoughts on this. I agree with the comments where mom will drop by all the time because I've read stories of that happening. Nothing's worse than an unwanted guest in your home, like what this next OP had to experience. Listen to this post. Okay, so here's a bit of background. I used to live in this nice neighborhood, very expensive houses kind of neighborhood. And there was this one neighbor, my next door neighbor, and she was the nicest person on earth. She let me come feed her cat when she was out of the house. And when she got back from vacations, she would bring me things. But when she moved out, that's when all hell broke loose. The neighbor that moved into that house was the worst Karen in history. Here's some things she did. Number 1, she complained about our cars being parked in our driveway, and somehow she managed to get all of our cars towed when we were out one evening. Number 2, my family were planting some watermelons, and when they were ripe, she decides to pull all of them out, and we pressed charges for trespassing, but they were dropped. Number 3, one time, she complained about paint on her driveway. Now, my brother did have a paintball gun, but he lived out of state at the time. Well, this Karen said that my brother came all the way down from where he lives to use his paintball gun on her driveway. She called the police, and she tried to have my brother arrested in another state. And lastly, where she definitely crossed the line. So as an 8-year-old at the time, I was very afraid of the dark, so I kept my light on at night. Coincidentally, my bedroom window was right in front of her bedroom window, and she often complained to my mother that it kept her up at night and I did nothing. So one night, she decided that enough was enough. I was sleeping when I hear some weird scratching on my window. Now, imagine how I felt when I wake up and I see an old woman's face at my window. I screamed so loud that I woke my parents up. My dad was always protective of the family, so he took out his shotgun and he threatened the lady. Long story short, the cops were called and she told them she was trying to get into my room to turn off my light as it bothered her so much, and we weren't doing anything about it. She did get arrested and she moved away not too long after. Yeah, I can't believe she did something as wild as trying to break into OP's house. Like, why not get blackout curtains or something? But you know what, guys? I have read enough of these stories to be able to say that some people just do what they want to do. Like, imagine if she did get into OP's room. How terrifying, right? So this happened last week, a Thursday to be specific. I called up a friend of mine, Sarah, and I asked her if she wanted to come for dinner since I was making way too much food and I'd like to share. She said she had a friend visiting from out of town and asked if her friend could come along. I said that was fine because the more the merrier, right? Fast forward about an hour and my friend knocks on the door. She's got another woman with her and 2 kids I've never seen in my life. The unknown people had bags with them, which did make sense to me since they were visiting, and probably didn't have time to stow their stuff before coming over. The kids were unexpected, and I really would have liked to have a heads up they were coming. Anyway, the mom Ashley then asked if she could stash her bag somewhere that would be out of the way. I took her to one of my guest rooms and I told her she could put them there. I then went back to the group. The kids asked if I had video games, which I very much do. So I took them to the game room and I showed them my consoles and PCs. They seemed to be quite excited. I then head back to the kitchen to finish up cooking, while Sarah, Ashley, my wife, and our friend hung out in the living room watching some reality TV brain rot. Everyone was happy. I ring the chow bell, which is literally a brass bell in my kitchen, to alert people when food's being served, and I start bringing the food into the dining room. The adults come in, my kids come in, my grandkids come in. Ashley's kids were still in the game room. I went to let them know that dinner was being served, and they asked to have plates brought to them in the game room. I explain we don't do that at my house. Everyone eats at the table and no food's allowed in the game room. They begrudgingly complied and they follow me to the dining room. Things were going well. Everyone's enjoying the food, enjoying a few drinks, and we had some nice conversation. When I got up to get dessert, Ashley wandered back to the guest room where her stuff was. After we ate dessert, Ashley told her kids it's time to get changed for bed, which I found strange. Who puts their pajamas on in a place where they don't intend to sleep? So I asked her, why not wait till you're at the hotel to get them changed? At this point, I got a bomb dropped on my head. She didn't have a hotel reservation. Turns out, she had set up sleeping bags for her kids in my guest room since we have so much space, in her words. And I'm thinking, ma'am, I've never met you before tonight. I didn't offer you my guest room to sleep in. Turns out, she hadn't booked any accommodations for her family because she knew Sarah had a, quote, rich friend with a big house. She fully intended to stay at my house without ever asking either me or Sarah. If that wasn't bad enough, she tried to guilt trip me about not supporting single mothers. They end up having to book a room at the local casino hotel, which was $300 a night for 9 nights. Apparently, I cost a single mother 2 months worth of rent, since I didn't want strangers in my house for 9 effing days. Like, how entitled do you have to be to just assume a stranger will put you and your 2 kids up in their home and for over a week? Yeah, some people are definitely next level self-entitled. Oh, you have a rich friend. I'm sure we can all stay at their house for 9 days. As a matter of fact, let's just set up sleeping bags in their guest room. Like, imagine how awkward that situation must have been. Hey, roll up those sleeping bags because you guys aren't staying here. And I love how she tried to make OP the bad person in all of this. And if you thought that parent was super entitled, listen to this next post. So yesterday after work, I took my 5-year-old to our local playground because he'd been bouncing off the walls all day. It was pretty busy, lots of parents on benches, kids running around, the usual. My son was on the climbing thing and I was standing nearby because he's still in that phase where he thinks he's invincible. A woman I'd never seen before was watching him way too hard, like she was following him with her eyes. I didn't think much of it until my kid slides down and he runs over to me for water. And she marches up with her arms crossed and she goes, "Is that your child?" I said, "Yes, obviously." And she immediately hits me with, "Well, he keeps cutting in front of my daughter. You need to control him or else." I told her there's no need to threaten me, that I would talk to him, and I did. I said, "Hey buddy, you need to wait your turn." He nodded and ran back, and I thought that was it. But no, maybe 10 minutes later, she's back, and this time even louder saying, "My son pushed her kid." My son's tiny, and her daughter was a lot older and bigger, but sure. I asked my son what happened, and he said the girl wouldn't let him climb, so he goes around her, and maybe he bumped her by accident. I apologized anyway because, whatever, playground stuff does happen. And that's when Karen says, "I don't even think this kid is yours. I've never seen you here before." I literally laugh because, what? She then tells me I need to show proof he's my kid, or she's calling someone because, quote, "People kidnap kids from parks all the time, and you look like somebody who would kidnap a kid." At this point, other parents are looking over, and my son's staring at me like he did something horrible. I said to her, "Lady, I'm not showing you anything. Back off." She then tries to grab my son's wrist when he walks over, like to keep him there. And that's when I snapped and I pull him behind me. I told her if she touches my son again, I'm calling the police. And she instantly flips to victim mode, acting like I'm aggressive and suspicious, and that a real parent would understand her concern. This is when one dad nearby finally speaks up, and he goes, "He's been here the whole time, lady, calm down." She got mad at him too, saying he's an enabler. She ends up leaving in a huff with her daughter, yelling that this park is unsafe. My kid asked me in the car if that lady thought I stole him, and I felt so gross about the whole thing. So this happened a while back. I'm a big war games player, and a local store used to buy tickets and rent a bus to bring people to a Games Workshop convention in Baltimore called Games Day. The cost they charge covers the bus and a one-day ticket. The only caveat is that kids under 18 years old had to at least have one adult with them who is also paying full entry, on the idea that the parent would stay with their child. This was made explicit in following years. Now, the convention was located in the prime shopping area of the Baltimore waterfront, so every year there's a few parents who come to go shopping. Usually, though, they have a few other parents who agree to watch the younger ones, though. The year this took place, my friend Hal and I end up going. Keep in mind, we're both in our mid-20s. So as we go through our morning at the convention, we notice that a group of boys were following us. When we asked why the kids kept tailing us, we were told these exact words. They said to us, "Mom told us we should stay with you two because you're responsible for us." And the thing is, none of their parents were in sight, or on site as it turns out. Most of the kids were cool, at least as cool as a 10-year-old can be to someone in their mid-20s. We end up grouping them with an older kid as an assistant buddy and took them with us. It's not like their parents were around for us to give them back after all, and we knew most of them from the shop. We made sure they got their turns at different events and generally just made the best of it. But hey, we were still a bit angry at having them foisted on us without being asked. Well, it also turns out that none of them were given money for lunch. They had their own money, which they spent on swag, but the cash their parents gave them wasn't enough to cover an actual lunch at the convention at all. It averaged about $3 per kid when that was the price of a soda. So Hal and I took all of their lunch cash and we took them to Hooters. We used that money and some of our own to make sure the waitresses were extra attentive, and we had them at their own table. We sat nearby to keep an eye on them. We had them order whatever they wanted that a kid could legally get, no booze of course. And between the restaurant being mostly dead and the fact that Hal and I were tipping well, meant that there were some scantily clad women around constantly, almost a 2-to-1 ratio, kid to waitress. They must have eaten 5 platters of wings before they were through, not including the ones they ordered but didn't like. Those got bagged up into a cooler bag. I told them it wasn't an issue, just order something they did like. At the end, we picked up the tab, but not before calling the trip organizer, Jim, to let him know what happened. We were told it wouldn't be an issue to get him a receipt. So we get the group scrubbed up and back to the convention, and we finished the afternoon. We got back to the bus, and I give Jim a receipt for lunch, as well as any other necessary items, mostly beverages, that we bought them afterwards. The bus was set to leave at 6 p.m., and we were told to be back for 5 p.m. just in case, but the trip would leave full or not. So around 5:30, the parents start coming back in, only to meet Jim at the front. He refused to let them on until they paid us back for watching their kids. Jim told them if they didn't pay by 6 o'clock, the bus would be leaving, and that they would still owe the tab. One parent asked for a delay to hit an ATM, and was granted permission to go. Jim told the rest that the bus would leave when the dad got back. A few other parents then asked to see the bill, which is where they discovered that we took their precious angels to Hooters. Never mind the fact that we were at a convention about a game where people kill aliens with chainswords. Jim informed them that if they had spoken to Hal and I before the convention started, then maybe they would have learned about our lunch plans and could have watched the kids themselves. That didn't shut up the few Karens in the group, but it did reduce most of it to grumbling. About this point, the first dad came back. He asked his share and was told, and he left most of the parents in shock. They apparently didn't have that much cash on them, and Jim wasn't gonna give them any more time. He said, pay up and board or stay behind and pay later. The first dad did offer to lend money to the rest, and he's not a guy you want to owe money to from what I gather, with some accepting and the rest finding cash in their purses and wallets. Jim ends up handing us $500. Almost $200 for the chicken, the rest he charged them as a kidtainment fee. What a satisfying ending to that post, guys, and the fact that the parents ended up having to pony up cash in the end to pay for what they thought would be free childcare left a huge smile on my face. I've always said this though, it's baffling when people leave their kids with complete strangers, guys, and knowing that Opie had some 10-year-olds with them at a crowded event like this, that somehow makes me feel super uneasy. Anything could have happened. Let me know your thoughts on this post. Well, it finally happened. I ran into my first Karen. I'm a volunteer search and rescue canine handler, and my dogs are pit bulls. I've been in search and rescue for 11 years now, and I've never really had much of an issue. Every once in a while, we do come across someone who doesn't understand what we do. But after a few minutes of explaining it, people change their attitudes, and they even get excited because we allow them to follow us and see what we're doing. Yesterday, I was working with my younger dog, who's almost ready to certify, but still has some minor issues we're training him on. We're working 20 acres of private property out in the 600 acres available to use, so that means my dog's off leash. He's got 3 collars on him and he's searching wonderfully. I'm watching my dog and I can tell he has a human scent. There is obvious body behavior you can see when a dog's in scent versus not. He's working around a large wood pile about 100 yards from me when he takes off over a ridge line. A few minutes later, he comes back and jumps on me, which is how he tells me he's found someone. I start to follow him when I hear a lady yelling. By this time, my dog's come back again and told me again he's found someone. Still running behind my dog, I come around a corner and there's Karen in all her glory, swinging a hiking pole at my dog. I give my dog tons of praise. I mean, here's a lady screaming at him and waving a scary pole in his face, and he didn't care at all. He did his job very well, and that's what I want to see in my dogs. This is when Karen says to me, "How dare you let your dog off leash?" I let her know, "I'm sorry ma'am, I'm with Search and Rescue and we have permission to train our dogs off leash." She says, no dogs are allowed off leash. Your dog is dangerous." That's when I let Karen know, "You're on private property. My dog's training to find missing people." She then whips out her phone and she starts recording me saying, "You think this behavior is acceptable?" I respond, "Yes, that's his job." She then demands to speak to my supervisor. Well, how my team works is we have senior members. We technically have one person in charge of the team, but we're considered supervisors and in charge of everything. We have full rights to speak on behalf of the team, and we can dismiss people for dangerous behavior, make decisions, all that stuff. So I tell Karen I am the supervisor. She then says, "Well, there's gotta be someone above you." To which I say, "Actually, no there isn't. I'm sorry you're upset, but what happened is what my dog's supposed to do." She then says, "Well, you should ask people before you let your dog run up to them." I respond, "You're trespassing on private property. You shouldn't be here." This is when Karen asked me for my name. I tell her my first name and she screams, "Your last name too." She then turns to the 2 men that were with me and she takes photos of them and my dog, who's still off leash, playing with his pink pig laying in the snow. She then says, "Do you approve of this? What are your names so I can get you fired?" Both guys just shrug and they say she's the one in charge. Karen finally huffs off yelling and my dog got back to work to find the guy that was hidden 20 feet away from where this whole thing took place. Later, she ran into the rest of the senior members and she had words about how my dog charged her and acted very aggressive, and how I gave him treats for that behavior. They also tried to explain it to her and she told them to hush, and there was obviously something wrong with everyone on our team. Again, the self-entitlement of some folk are next level. Like, it's funny how Karen was trespassing on private property and she was trying to tell others what to do. Like, I'm sorry ma'am, but at this point, your opinion doesn't matter. Not that it would have in the first place. And that, my friends, brings us to another end of our / entitled people. Guys, I hope you enjoyed today's stories. If you did, hit that thumbs up. And if you're not subscribed, consider subscribing so you don't miss these crazy stories. And if you missed yesterday's episode on the channel, it's an r/malicious compliance episode, where OP follows her Karen classmate's exact orders, and it literally ruins her life. It's such a wild episode, so go check it out if you haven't, and myself and Stevie Boy will see you guys in the next one. We love you.